Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Hey everybody, my name is John and I'm an alcoholic. Oh, I'm in the right place. You never know if you walk into a Legion convention. And I thank you all. I thank Bill Wilson, and I thank Bob, Dr. Bob, and I thank every one of you as co-founders of Alcoholics Anonymous for helping to save my life. I'm just a plain old drunk, and my story, I assumed, I think the first time I drank, that I just was going to make my life unmanageable just right away. There was really no easing into it. And I grew up in an Irish family, and I was asked, what are your earliest memories of childhood? And it's looking up at my family. An uncle died. I can't remember his name, but he was an uncle. And an Irish wake is where it's another excuse to drink. So as a little boy, I look up and there's glasses and there's laughter. The house didn't smell very good because the guy was there like 3 or 4 days. That's what they do, those Irish people know. And I watched everybody, and there's joy and there's laughter, and then later in the day there's arguments, and then by that night there's fights outside in the snow. This is up in Rice Lake, Wisconsin. At a very early age, I associated alcohol with violence, with people out of control. I never, ever, from that moment on, saw anything that people call normal drinking. And my dad's an alcoholic, and my mom's an alcoholic, and on and on and on. And it's really interesting. Before I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, I used to laugh a lot about being an alcoholic while I was in the bar. And I'd say, I'm an alcoholic, and ha, ha, ha. And then you break a bottle over a big guy's head, and they laugh, and you laugh about it. But I remember up in Minnesota in 1983, I was at a bar, and I was sitting at the bar looking at a clock. And I realized how long I'd been sitting in that bar stool, and how much I'd given up to sit in that bar stool. I gave up having children. I played music. It's what I do. I'm a recording artist today. And back then, I was the drunk guy down the basement that sang dirty songs at the piano. And, what is it like now? And how much can change, And back in 1983, I'm a run-of-the-mill drunk, but I like to take drugs so I could drink more. And I like to take drugs that stimulate me so that I could drink more. Now, I tried horse tranquilizers. Don't get me wrong, I tried everything. But I usually would end up on my back in the middle of the road waiting for cars to run over me and stuff like that. So that's pretty crazy. And I'm a type 1 diabetic, diagnosed when I was 19 years old. And I want to tell you a story. And I'm going to share my spiritual experiences that I've had as a result of being an alcoholic and being in this program. And I'm going to play some music tonight, and it's a little bit of a different thing, but I've been asked to do that. And I play music all over the world. And most of my music today comes from what happened to me in this program. And very rarely do I get to tell an audience exactly what step and where these songs came from and how God has worked in my life. I'm 19 years old and I've been drinking alcoholically for 4 or 5 years. I'm in the hospital in Jeanette, Pennsylvania, and my sugar is about 711. I remember that somebody came in and said, your sugar is 711, you have diabetes. He says, my uncle had that and his foot fell off. I go, well, thanks for the cheery news. They're cheering me up right away. And then candy stripers, which are volunteer. Do you have those here? And we have them in Minnesota. And if I get to sound like Garrison Keillor too much, I can't help it. But my wife is from Alabama, and she's given me a little bit of Southern stuff. But this nurse comes in. I'm 19 years old. I've been drinking alcoholically for a long time, every day. And I remember it all happened in slow motion. And I don't know if there's any other diabetics in here, but I was just starving. My sugar was so high, and I just wanted something to eat. So slow motion, here comes the little candy striper with pigtails and a piece of chocolate cake and a glass of milk, and there are beads of moisture coming off the milk. Oh, and it's slow motion, and she's getting closer, and the cake is getting closer. And it's like a little movie, and then all of a sudden, boom, the doctor runs in, and he's got a little clipboard going, no. If I would have ate that cake, I wouldn't be here tonight to talk to you. But I didn't know that. He went, no, and he was very important. The stethoscope was flying, and he ruined my moment there. And so he came in and he says, John, you're a diabetic. Can't have that cake. And then he just goes like, looks at his board, he says, John, do you drink? And I said, a little. And he said, how much? I said, a couple. And I didn't know that doctors are trained into reaching down here and your liver swells up quite a bit. He says, your liver is pretty swollen up, and you drink quite a bit, don't you? And I said, not that much, really. I said, and he said, you're going to have to stop. And I go, completely? And I'm getting nervous. Really getting nervous. He said, in moderation. And I took a deep breath. I said, what is that? And the doctor gave me the weirdest answer that only a normal person could do. He said, 1.97 ounces of this and that, and it just went like, no. And I reacted violently. I almost vomited. My brain knew that this was going to be torture. And so he said, you're going to have to go on insulin. We're going to bring some needles in. We're going to show you a little movie, and the candy striper will be back with a little thing I want you to read about diabetes. So she came back, and she said, my aunt had that, and she went blind, and one of her legs fell off. So I'm pretty cheered up about this whole thing. And, that day I decided I'm just going to go out in a blaze of glory. And here's a real tough question. Where do you think the first place I went when I got out of the hospital was? Yeah, liquor store. And I drank till I blacked out. And I woke up and I said, I guess I can still drink, and I have these needles. And the thought crosses me, needles, drugs. I go, oh, people that shoot drugs are losers. And, So I hooked up with some losers as quick as I could. I'm kind of a mellow, soft-spoken guy, but I always end up with bikers. I mean, last night I went out to eat with a bunch of people in this program, and they were all old bikers, but I hooked up with these bikers very early on when I was 19 years old. I didn't, sorry. And I went over to their place, and I had these needles with me, and God, they were friendly. They were so kind to me. And I remember one of them said, "John, you play the banjo?" I said, "Heck, yeah." And I never played a banjo in my life. But I could usually pick something up. Well, we get pretty drunk, and they pull out some white powder, and it ends up in the needles and ends up in my arm. And about 4 o'clock that morning, they were all passed out, and I'm there. I was Earl Scruggs. I learned how to play the banjo, and there was blood all over my hands. There was no moderation for me. That's just the way it happened with alcohol. And alcohol took me to places that I said I would never go, and things I would never do, and I'm never going to be like my father. I will never, ever be like my dad, who was an alcoholic, who came home 2 o'clock in the morning, a lot of violence, but some nights there was a different thing that would happen, and it was like clockwork. My dad worked his way up fought in Iwo Jima, and he belonged to the Legion. My dad played clarinet with Stan Kenton, if anybody knows big bands. Yeah. And so as he was older and very alcoholic, he would play his clarinet in Legion halls, and the Legions always close at 1. For some reason, he'd always get home about 3. And he worked his way up to president of the Legion, so he could drink, And he'd get home at 2, and he'd come in the garage, and had 11-foot deep garage. And back then, you had to open it up by hand, a really weird thing. There were no buttons. And he would drive that car in about 11 and a half feet every time. And then he'd laugh and get out. And when Irish men drink, they take their clothes off. It's just very natural. So he's in his shorts, and he has these nylon socks that when you take them out of wingtips, it's like Limburger cheese, And the brandy and the Limburger, and then he opens sardines, and oh, yikes. And it stinks, and I know there's going to be trouble, because what he does is he goes. My father had a long-standing resentment with the neighbor who had these barking dogs, and so he gets this clarinet out and gets in the back of the yard. Now it's 3:30, and he plays the opening lick to Rhapsody in Blue in his shorts. And the neighbor comes out, their dogs come out, all the lights come on like Flintstones, And he starts swearing really, really bad words at the neighbor. And then the cops come, and the police ask me to take my dad inside, and they asked me to put the handcuffs on my dad and put him in the back seat of the car, and they drive him off. And I said, I will never, ever in my life be like that man. And fast forward to 1983, my sobriety date is December 12th, 1983. The evening of December 10th, 1983, they pulled me off the freeway in Brainerd, Minnesota, which if you've ever seen the movie Fargo, it's right where I was. I was playing with a really good band. I laugh. You had to play Boot Scootin' Boogie 9 times, Old Time Rock and Roll 20. Then if you knew anything else, it's fine. And everything was red in the Waterfall Inn. I was at the end of my rope, though, and they pulled me off the freeway in Brainerd that night at about 2 in the morning in a blizzard. 15 below, and the snow was blowing this way. And evidently I was walking into that snow wearing a guitar and a pair of socks. Thank you. Ladies clapping. I outdid my dad, And they had to kind of thaw me out, and they brought me into this emergency room, and I really don't remember it. I have to tell you, I don't remember. And the next day was my first time I prayed to God. We had to do a matinee that day at the Waterfall Inn before karaoke machines. So the band is there. I want to die. I've already tried to commit suicide 3 times, and I'll go back to the month previous to this. But there we are. It's just hell there. And the lights shining through the windows. And talent show, $150 first prize, 75 second, 53rd. One guy shows up. That's how dead this place was. So he comes up, walks in. He's a short fellow with a truck hat on and some grease and a big biker wallet. I just remember the chain went all the way down to his knee, and he was fidgeting with that. He had a couple of women on his arm. And I just telling you the way it is. You can't make it. But I noticed they had more hair on their arms than I did. And there were two of them, and they looked like sisters. So he came in, and and they sit down, and he takes that hat off, and he's talking like this, you know. His name is Jerry. And yeah, I'm going to join the thing, and I'm going to sing a song by Merle Haggard there, and I'll be really good. I said, okay, you know. And then he puts on this cowboy hat, and he starts talking like this. He says, "Oh, you all kick it off here. We're in the key of G." And the band kicks it off. This is a nightmare. I want to die. I want to throw up. We play the song, and halfway through, the guitar player's playing a solo, and we're all really pretty good musicians. And he goes over to me, and he goes, "You ain't playing that right." So, you know, first thought wrong. I've heard that around here. I'm going to kill him. And dear God, I'm going to kill this guy with the mic stand. I got a vision of how it's going to work. I said, please, I want to die, you know. So instead of that, I got on the mic. I said, "You suck." And the two girls stood up, you know, about this far. And they looked at me, and I heard his pride. So he was like right here, and he turned, and he just whacked me in the eye. And I had duct tape on my glasses. I was really together alcoholic. No oil in my van and duct tape on my glasses. And I thought it was Elton John. And the delusions we have. Jim, you talked about, my God, we don't have a clue. So I'm tearing up, and the glasses are hanging down, and now my thought is, well, I'm going to murder him right here, and that's all there is to it. And here's my first spiritual experience in recovery. The air just came out of me. And I will not use any profanity. I'm going to do my best. This guy's name is the Little Prick. I called him the Little Prick. And I looked up at him, and all the air came out of me. And I couldn't breathe, and I started to cry. And I closed my eyes, and I started to cry really hard. Well, he looked at me like, what on earth happened? The band knew what was wrong, because 5 weeks before that, I tried to take my life, driving across the freeway in St. Paul with my eyes closed. And I'd had enough. And I came home, and I called it a number in the book. And I'd heard people went to Alcoholics Anonymous, but it was like the Holy Roller Church. It was down the street, and they made really weird noises on Sunday. And I thought that was what AA was, but I didn't really know. And I called this number, and it was a treatment center or something, and they said, "You come Monday, and we'll do an evaluation on you." Of course, in hindsight, you think they don't know. And I got duct tape still on my glasses, always. And I'm swollen up. And I'm in terrible shape. And I lied at all the questions. And I wouldn't admit that I wanted to kill myself. And I wouldn't admit that I've been drinking every day since I was 14 or 15 years old. And he said, "Yeah, you could go to treatment. I think you're an alcoholic." So he asked me a very important question. Can you quit drinking by yourself? And I think it's the most important question that faces every alcoholic. Because I thought, oh yeah, I can do that. And I did think I could. And I did for 17 or 18 days. And then the illusion. And I am so grateful for this relapse, whatever you want to call it. I wasn't going to meetings yet. I was just going to wait to go start treatment, And I took something, and I don't know how it happened. Alcohol just jumped in my mouth. And I was poisoned instantly. And it was horrible what happened. And there I was when that little prick hit me. And I'm sitting there, I go, oh my God, I'm dead. And I've been dead for 10 years of the most 10 important years of my life since that day I was in the hospital when I was 19. And when I opened my eyes, I took a half-full bottle of Budweiser. I walked all the way to the end of that bar, and I set it down. And I said, dear Lord, will you please help me? I need a new life. Next day, I'm standing up in a 2-week outpatient treatment center. All it was AA back then. And we stood up, and I was as happy. I was unbelievable. He said, stand up. We're going to recite here's the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol and our lives become unimaginable. I said, no shit. Right out loud, I said it. And here I got the thing in my eye and the duct tape, and I haven't brushed my teeth for a long time, really a long time. And then I used to make a joke. I'd put a hot dog in my wallet, you know, in case I needed food at the bar, and I'd left one in there for a couple, 3 days. So the young lady next to me, she's going, what's that smell? You know, I go, no shit. And this wave of emotion hit me. I didn't know that you could not drink. No one told me. And this old guy with bib overalls, ponytail, he said he played the bass, and he rode a Harley. This is the beginning of my motorcycle theme, you know, after the banjo guy, the guy shot me full of the dope. And he said, welcome home, John. And this man put his arm around me. And that's why when I come to an AA meeting and I look at people, I say, you're a co-founder of Alcoholics Anonymous. People don't know that Bill Wilson used to say that all the time. Anybody that comes to the meeting, you become a co-founder if you carry this message to somebody. Now, I had no clue that that's what that guy was doing. So we go through the stuff. He goes, all right, you're going to have to go to an AA meeting. I go, I'm ready to go. Where do I go? He says, you have to go look it up. First concept of God is a verb, because that ain't what I'm thinking. I have to go do something. Found a meeting. I go to the Maplewood AA Club in St. Paul, Minnesota, and I go in there, and I'm smoking like a factory, and I'm nervous as heck, and I go in there, and there's a guy in there I know. It's Dave. It's Cowboy Dave. And he's the guy that teaches line dancing at the Palomino Club, where I used to pass out all the time. And Dave only dances backwards. Up in Minnesota, we don't have a clue, but you got it. Texas is where it all starts. We steal all the music from you, and about 5 years later, we learn how to wear our cowboy hats and stuff. But he could only dance backwards, and he'd wiggle his butt. He had no rhythm. And then there'd be 15 middle-aged women doing the line dance, and he charged them all money to follow him around, and he had this bug-eyed, there's enough of you in this room that know what mescaline is and stuff. I thought he was an organic, kind of a bug-eyed, and just like, I will be damned. I go in that meeting, and there it says, Dave, he's a truck mechanic. I said, what are you doing there? I'm waiting for you. I've been waiting for you. He became my first sponsor. And the big book would be laid open. I never had a car that cost more than $100. Just a rule of thumb. Yeah. Like I planned it that way, right? So but Dave would show me how to change a water pump. I tell you, I changed a water pump in my car, and I thought I was Einstein, you know? And Dave's there, and he says, here's that wrench. You go there. He goes, you know, let's talk about the second step a little bit. He says, were you powerless when you... I said, oh, man, I was really powerless, you know. And we would talk, and he would carry the message to me. And he worked me through the steps. I didn't even know it. And I did my first 4th step and did it about 75%. And I'm still learning how to do AA right. I don't know about some of you are probably perfect at it, but I'm still learning. I kind of do things incrementally, you know. Fourth step, I pulled that little rotten egg out, you know, that sits in your belly. I finally pulled it out. But those moments, I did not know what Dave was doing. He was a co-founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, carrying the message to me and making sure I got to the meetings. And now I'm doing stuff I never thought of, you know. Here's the thing they say not to do. I played in the bars. I went back, and that was my job. And my counselor said, if that's what you got to do, but you better get some support around you. So I find out the bouncer, Doc, is 16 years sober. A biker, big white Harley, had bullet holes all over him, and he's killed people, and kind of proud of it. Really. Takes me over, he goes, John's an alcoholic, Diet Coke. If you get anything else in that cup, I'm going to kill you. And you'd think they go, yeah. No, they go, okay, Doc. So the angels start coming out of the woodwork for me. People, so many people in this program came to help me. It's unbelievable, and you all know what that's like, you know. And then I hit the brick wall. And Jim talked about God. And I was pretty pissed at God. And they said, God's either everything or he's nothing. Who's your higher power? I said, can I be honest? And they said, yes. And in Alcoholics Anonymous, you can be absolutely honest. And nobody judged me. Nobody said a thing to me. It wasn't what I thought. They said, I don't care what you think, it's what you do. I didn't understand that. But I was pissed at God. My father was a very violent alcoholic, and my mother became crazy. So I grew up around a lot of stuff. And so when I sobered up, I go, I don't know if I believe in you, but I got to blame it on somebody. And like you, Jim, I was really angry. And so I'm going to play this song for you. And I don't get to tell people where this really came from, but I can tell you here. This came from all of this. And it's my first prayer. And when I look in hindsight, people talk about how powerful prayer is. I'd never had a conversation honest with God. It was mostly, I was raised Catholic, and it's all the jokes. You get in the confessional, you know, and it's the same old stuff. You know, you're 9 years old. I'm making up sins. I got to look up what they are. And we're going to make you feel really bad about yourself, John. Like it isn't bad enough being at home, you know. We're going to make it even worse for you. But the prayer came, and I was angry at God. And what happened in the beginning of the song is I'm really angry. And I keep talking to God. And by the end of that song came the willingness, came step 2. Just have some willingness, John, that there's something out there, you know, more powerful than you are. And so I'm going to play this song for you. It's called Give Me New Eyes. I know this is weird. I'm having a hard time just trying to understand all the suffering, the misery that man goes through. Where were you when I needed you? And how come I didn't get what I needed? How could you let them treat me that way? And where were you when I needed you? Oh, when black clouds come over me, they darken my skies. If it's how I look at things, give me new eyes.
can't you see I'm giving up? I don't know where you are. Where are you? Oh, when black clouds come over me, they darken my skies. Every time I look at things, give me new eyes. And if it's you we need now. If it's through each other we will see you. Let us see you. See it now. So please forgive me for feeling this way. And please forgive me for blaming you the way I do. You see, it's just that I need you. Oh, when black clouds come over me, they darken my skies. Every time I look at things, give me new eyes. Oh, if it's how I look at things, give me new eyes. When black clouds come over me, they darken my skies. So give me new eyes just for the day. Give me new eyes just for the day.
So I had new eyes, and everyone in this room has a story about how things look differently. Is this thing on? Okay. There's another song I got to write called "Give Me New Ears," and little too many rock and roll years. So the new eyes, and I think every alcoholic has a story about how things look differently. And Alcoholics Anonymous to me is about telling stories. You know, in the first 164 pages, those 100 people really went through a lot of crap for me and you. And they kept telling their stories, and then they actually put stories in behind there. But every time I go to a meeting, someone will tell me a story. And I think it's for me always, you know, about how they see things differently. And it always starts out the same, doesn't it? It doesn't matter what the topic is, a neighbor or a wife or a husband, and that's so-and-so, and I'm so, and I just thought that, and once I think about it, she's a pretty good woman, you know, or my neighbor's not so bad. It's not once we think about it, I think it's once we talk about it. I remember my first grapevine that Cowboy Dave gave me. He goes, John, I got a whole box of grapevines. You got to read this stuff. And it says on there, we're going to talk this disease to death. Isn't that great? And most of the time, we don't even know we're doing that. And we talk it to death. And I remember going to a meeting one time, and I sat back. We had a guy at our AA club up in Minnesota that didn't want to be there. And I'll make up a name. I'll call him Jim. It's a good name, Jim. It's kind of not. And Jim would get up and say, I don't belong here. You know, I'm just going to get my papers signed, and I don't want to be here. And of course, we'd ask him questions. Well, why are you here? And it's really, the litany goes on. DUIs and his wife and violence. He says, I hate it here. I don't think I belong here. We'll keep coming back, and you're welcome to come and just hang around. You might hear something that you like. And so one night I go to the 6 o'clock meeting, and Jim slides in next to me, and he's down there. I go, oh, brother, we're going to get some grief tonight. He's going to bitch about something. So it's about 3 minutes to 6, and the door's open a little bit, and smoke is coming in, and we can, you know how it is being at a meeting when someone's been using, it's just like the red lights go off, and woo, woo, you smell the smell. That smell was leaking in the back door, and there's a guy out there, you could see his hand in a cigarette. And I think it's one of the most, this is an alcoholic, and you could smell that. So Jim sneaks out and pushes the door open and confronts the guy. And all of a sudden, I kind of lean back. And I hear Jim going, what's the matter? The guy says, I've been living in my car. And my wife won't let me in because she's afraid I'm going to hurt the kids. And now we're all listening, the last back rows. Old Jim goes, you're in the right place. Puts his arm around him. The door opens, here comes Jim and this new guy. 2 new co-founders of Alcoholics Anonymous. And Jim stayed sober. Last time I saw him, we were painting the club. Jim was in there, oh man, this is just the greatest thing in the world. And he had the new eyes, you know. And I don't know how or why these things happen. And God works, you know, the way God works. But when we least expect it, we're going to be, I get tipped off on my little pedestal, you know, and moments like those happen. And I said, I'm hanging around. I like this here, you know. I had to move from Minnesota. I got a record deal. I had to move to Alabama, and now I'm sober, and I was afraid to move because all my friends were up in Minnesota and all my recovery. I got a record deal in Muscle Shoals Studios and went down south. Felt really lonely. I just gotten another divorce. Been married 4 times. This divorce was really hard. It was in sobriety. And when you're sober, it says in the big book somewhere you're not supposed to make any mistakes as far as relationships go. Because somebody will read it to you, you know. You're not supposed to forget about it. And I kept making mistake after mistake after mistake, you know. And I remember before leaving for Alabama, I was up in my room in St. Paul, and here's spiritual experience number 3. And then I'm going to do number 4, which is a biggie. Just got to keep an eye on time. But step 6, I'm 12 years sober or something, and I'm struggling with step 6, where it says, you kind of give some stuff to God possibly, and then you become perfect. And then everybody, you get a halo, and everybody just thinks you're really cool. Your family goes, yeah, we want to sober up too, like you, John. But I felt really bad, and I felt bad about this relationship and what I had done, because I made some mistakes that I made a lot in my life, and I kept doing them, you know. Years later, I know now that all my answers to every problem, I can find them in the big book. There's about 419,000 12-step groups now. People with one eyebrow addicted to caffeine, and it gets pretty funny, but, and this part of it, you know, a lot of us are powerless over a lot of stuff. I am anyway. And I went running around, you know, shopping and all that stuff. It's all in the big book with my sponsor. All of this hit me in the face like really hard this day. And I'm sober. And this is where I have to admit that I did eat some mescaline, because this is a pretty weird dream while I'm wide awake. But there's an angel appears, and I'm playing this weepy little, poor me, and the angel comes out of the corner of my eye. And it's an angel with a rented angel outfit, because it's too small, because the guy is pretty fat. And it's Buddy Hackett. I'm sorry, it's Buddy Hackett. I'm 59 years old, and I grew up watching Buddy Hackett come on after Lyle Wagner on The Tonight Show. And Lyle's out there, Mr. Handsome. Buddy would come on, with his belt kind of over here and a glass, and he just like Mr. Imperfect. I loved him. So out of the words of his mouth came all the lyrics to this next song. I kid you not. And it's called "You Will Always Stumble." And I got a record deal with this song, with the folks at Warner Brothers in Hollywood. And I went, you can't make this up. I went out there in that big room where John Williams conducts all the symphony. They had it was 11 feet grand piano. It looked like 50 to me. And there were 3 young guys in suits sitting there. And they go, "You will always stumble." And they kind of knew some of my history that I told them I'm in recovery, They go, "Those people you hang around with, that song probably makes a lot of sense, but could you change the title a little bit so that's more," they wanted it to sell. Well, obviously I'm not very famous, but I changed it, and the name of it is Good Enough. And this was the moment when I realized that I had to just let go. And I don't know why Buddy Hackett had to tell me, but that's how it works. The weepy song.
Sometimes I stumble, sometimes I fall. Sometimes head first into the wall. And sometimes I want to scream about it all. Sometimes I stumble and sometimes I fall. Heard an angel whisper in my ear. He said, "Now don't you worry about it all." I heard an angel whisper in my ear. He says, "You're good enough just the way you are." Then I heard the angel laughing right out loud. He said, "You will always stumble and you will always fall." And I'm only human after all. I'm only human, I guess that's all. I wanted so much more, now don't we all? Oh, I don't like to stumble, and I sure do hate to fall. Heard an angel whisper in my ear. He said, "Now don't you worry about it all." Says you're good enough just the way you are. Then I heard the angel, he's laughing right out loud. He said, "You will always stumble and you will always fall." My skin ain't perfect, and I've been given to live in. And all I need is good enough, good enough. Amen. I heard an angel whisper in my ear. He said, "Don't you worry about anything." I heard the angel whisper in my ear. He says, "You're good enough, Johnny boy." Then I heard the angel laughing right out loud. He said, "You will always stumble. You will always stumble. And you will always fall."
Well, how weird is that, huh? But Buddy knew what he was talking about. Buddy's life changed quite a bit later on in his life, and I'd heard from his daughter, and it's pretty amazing the things we run into. This next song and is a result of me redoing my fifth step the way it was intended to do, and it's kind of funny how it all led up to this. I had been performing in some theaters and had some records and all that stuff, and I would go out and perform in a theater, but then the next 3 weeks I'd have to play in one of those little bar bands, you know, up in Minnesota. And so I'm playing in this one little bar band, and I had a long resentment building up. Now I'm up to about 70 cups of coffee a day. I'm as thin as a wire. I'm going to a lot of meetings. And this is when Harley Davidson, this is the biker theme, started marketing motorcycles to insurance salesmen. And you guys know that's what happened. They marketed these expensive bikes to people that weren't bikers. So we had a couple of these characters that would follow our band, and they had leather coats, real shiny, and their hair was curled, and they had pencil holders on the inside. And then they'd sit there and they would make fun of our lead singer, Vicky, all the time. Of course, the guitar player couldn't hear, he'd have earplugs in. So I'm picking up on this, and I'm building the resentment towards these guys. And this one particular night, I go to the bathroom door opens, and some marijuana smoke came out the top. That really kind of pissed me off. So I kind of duck, and the guy's looking at me. He goes, "After you, Four Eyes." Ooh. All those years of my dad. All those years of a whole lot of stuff culminated. I went back to my piano, set my glasses down, and went back. I escorted the man outside to dance. And it was really, I guess I would say it wasn't like me, but it was. And it was bound to happen. And his friend didn't want to dance. And the guy's laying on the ground, and he's in a heap, and I'm really mad. The bouncer runs out, and it's one of those typical bouncers who's weighs quite a bit and can't walk. He finally gets out there. He goes, "Whoa, John Denver goes wild. What'd you?" Goes, "What'd you do?" I said, "Yeah, it's alcoholic behavior, but you're the dude that doesn't drink." I said, "Never mind." And so I get this weird little thing in Minnesota where I have to go to anger management class, and I end up going back to the therapist, and my sponsor's talking to me, and I'm doing a whole lot of work. And this was the year 2000, and I got a gig that I never got to talk about ever in public. And it was a big gig. And I had to keep it quiet for 9 months. And I was real nervous about it. And for 70,000 people at the Dome in Minneapolis, 70,000 alcoholics at the AA International, and a song I wrote. And I'm not, a lot of people wanted to do that are all really, really famous people. And to this day, a lot of people thought it was Elton John. My sponsor was up there. He goes, "That's my sponsor. He's from St. Paul." And my wife and I went to a meeting in North Carolina a few months after that. We was at the International. I said, "Where are you from?" "Minneapolis." "We was at the International. We saw Elton John there." I said, "That was me." She said, "We got pictures." I said, "So do I." Anyway, when I got off the stage that day, and I have a picture of it, and the drummer's holding me, and I'm in absolute tears. And the reason being is it talked a lot about my dad. My dad never saw me play. And I think a lot of you know what that is, how alcoholism takes us from everything that's good and consistent and safe and loving and all those things. When I looked out there, there were only 69,999. He was the guy that was missing. Of course, the drummer says, "What's the matter?" And my dad's not here. He says, "Yeah, he is." You know, when people say that to you, when you're really, you go, I won't say it. He sees you, you know. No, he doesn't. And I cried and cried, and I got over all that. But I go to anger management. We did a little of that. I'm working with my sponsor, and 2 weeks later, this is the dream that I have, and this was a real, real dream. Father never heard me play. Alcoholism turned him into an animal. And when you're a little kid, you grow up, and your dad's your hero, and then he does these things. It doesn't make any sense. And this was the moment, I think, this is my spiritual awakening as the result of working the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, and it absolutely saved my life. And I don't know where I was in sobriety years, 18 or whatever, probably about 12 years old. And this was a real dream, and in the dream, my dad came to me. And he put his hand on my shoulder, and I remember that it was very, very real. And if anybody asked me today, this wasn't even a dream. He came to me. And I hadn't been able to see my father's face for over 15 years when he died. And there he was, put his hand on my shoulder, and he said, "You're really good." That's a pretty big deal from Dad. They don't give you roses, you know. World War II vets aren't real big on, "Hey, give me a hug." He didn't know how, but he was sober. And he patted me on the butt, said, "You're really good." And I woke up in my bed, and there was light, and I had a couple of tears, but the light bulb went on. That nothing wrong with me. My dad's an alcoholic. I went, wait a minute, I'm an alcoholic. That's what Jim was talking about. I got to change. I got to do this. So things happened with me very weird, and in the dream, when my dad did that and I woke up, I realized how important that forgiveness was. And how do I do that? You know, and guys go, "How do you do that?" Well, let's open the book, because it's right in there. This is a song called "If You Can't Forgive." And Dad, if you're watching, he's up in clarinet heaven, which is right by, this is one of my cheaper jokes, banjo heaven. Squeaky instrument.
Well, old man sitting by the sea, and tears rolling down his wind-worn cheeks. I hold my hand out and I ask him, "Can I help?" He says, "Help me by listening to the story I tell." He said, "My heart is full of anger, bitterness and fear. That's why I'm an old man full of all these tears." He said, "Empty your heart of all its bitterness. If you're angry at anything, son, it's time you forgive, and just fill it up with love and a little gentleness, 'cause you can't go on living if you can't forgive." He says, "I know you've been hurt, son, and your hurt runs deep, but you don't have to end up an old man like me." He says, "I sat here full of rage for all these years, 'cause nobody told me what I'm telling you here." He said, "Empty your up with love and a little gentleness. 'Cause you can't go on living if you can't forgive. He says you don't go on living if you can't forgive. And then he stood up, he put his arm on me. He said, promise me one thing before you leave, that you'll empty your heart of all its bitterness. And if you're angry at anything, it's time to forgive, and just fill it up with love and a little gentleness. 'Cause you can't go on living, you don't go on living. He says it just isn't living if you can't forgive. Thank you. Time for a couple more here. I don't know what time. Stick with here. Thank you all very much. I'm going to finish with a couple things about God. And first speaker mentioned, ain't no way around it. And there really isn't. I got asked to go back to church and play some music. Somebody called me. So will you come and play some music in church? I said, I'm afraid if I go to church, I'll catch on fire. That's what I said. And the guy said, don't worry about it. Just come and so this song is about that experience and the people that I met at the church. And, you know, in the fourth chapter, and it's just really good for me to remember that we're all in there. To the agnostics, all of us, what we think about God or don't, or we're all in that chapter. It's the most incredible writing. I've just, you know, when I figured that out, you know, of course, I'm several years sober, and I go, did you see what's in there? Holy cow. What did they say? They slip it in there, you know, when you aren't looking. It's called God Found Us at the Bottom. God ain't these buildings, and God ain't just these books. God ain't all that money that old preacher man took. God ain't angry, and God ain't loud. God found me at the bottom, not up in the clouds. And God always touches those who've fallen down. And if God's a little busy, ought to love you now, God will touch somebody near you, and they'll love you from now. 'Cause God always touches those who've fallen down. God always touches those who falling down. Standing here on this, broken hearts on our knees, the wounded and discarded in the dark, we all say please. Hurts so hard when you've fallen down this far. God finds us at the bottom, yeah, not just the clouds. And God always touches those who've fallen down. And if God's a little busy, I'll love you now. God will touch somebody near you and he'll love you now. 'Cause God always touches those who've fallen down. God always touches those who fallen down. God is in our voices and God is in our hearts. God is in the tears we cry, love's just who we are. God is in our voices every time we sing out loud. God hears us from the bottom, not just the clouds. And God always touches those who've fallen down. And if God's a little busy to love you now, God will touch somebody near you and they'll love you now. 'Cause God always touches those who've fallen down. God always touches those who've fallen down. God found me at the bottom, not up in the clouds, no, not up in the clouds. I lost my watch. How are we doing back there? We okay? Huh? Well, I'll be a little more specific then. Okay, all right. I'll do a couple. So now we're going to do just songs. And I don't know if any of you watch movies and they go based on a true story. I always just like it more. I don't know what it is, because I know somebody didn't sit there in Hollywood and make it up. And I come from Nashville, where I'm pretty knee-deep in the music business, and 6 or 7 people come up with a song, and then the artist gets on TV and goes, "When I wrote that song, it was so important to me." And I go, okay. But here's a song that's truly based on a true story. And it's about 2 alcoholics named Jimmy and Isaac. And 2 years ago, I got a phone call, and I had been out on the road, and I came home, and all I wanted was to sleep and to have a big bowl of sugar-free ice cream. It's that simple. I came in the door, my wife Nancy's on the phone, and she's talking to her friend Bo McAlpine from Demopolis, Alabama. She goes, "I don't know, Bo, I'll ask him." I go, "Oh, brother." Bo's got a friend who's a terrible alcoholic. His name is Isaac, and he's been in treatment and tried everything and been in and out of meetings forever. She said he's at a hotel in Nashville, and Bo thinks he's dead or he's dying. Would you go try to find him? Being the spiritual fit giant that I am, I went, "I don't want to. I want some ice cream." And I knew that that's not what I was supposed to do. So I called the sponsee. I said, "Jack, you got a gun, right?" "Yeah, I got a gun." I go, "Do you know how to shoot it?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "Do you have a license to shoot it?" He goes, "Yeah, we're going on a 12-step call." So we went to the Drake, and it was just like, and it's really a bad place. I don't know how many people have died there, but some of them accidentally, some not so accidentally. It's a really tough place. We pull up, and there's the door, and there's Isaac, and managers come up, and they go, "Thank God you're coming to take Isaac out of here." So we got him in the car, took him to a place to detox him. He got some help.
and basically got to Alcoholics Anonymous, and that's where you go. And a couple months back, he got a 2-year medallion, a few months back, you know. And when Isaac was a kid, in the month of June, his father, who was an alcoholic, drove into a train in Demopolis, Alabama, and was blown to smithereens. And Isaac was beat up pretty bad. Every June, Isaac gets back into that memory. And old Bo would call like the first June and the second June. This is when Isaac gets drunk again, you know. And all I'm thinking is let's get him in the book and get him doing some work and talking about it and writing about it, you know. So we did that. But so I figured I'll just write him a song. And the reason being is the weirdest thing happened. Isaac gets into a house like it's a men's sober house. We'll call it that. Isaac's from Demopolis. He talks so slow. He gets this guy that moves in there, becomes his best friend, named Jimmy. And Jimmy's from Youngstown, Ohio. He talks really fast. His eyes are bugging out. He looks like an Italian Mr. Potato Head. He's just so all the time. And he can't count to 10. I mean, he's got all sorts of stuff going on. And Isaac is cool, but Isaac will never drive because he's had so many. Isaac calls me, he goes, "Yo," that means John. He goes, "Yo, I want to go to Knoxville with Jimmy. We're going to his mom's house. I'm going to get Jimmy's car." I said, "Well, what are you telling me?" "I want permission to go." I said, "Well, how are you going to get there? How are you going to get back and stuff?" So we said, it's okay to go. They go to Knoxville, get Jimmy's car. Our home group, where my friend Mark here goes, has a big parking lot. We're sitting out there one day, and in comes a Mercedes-Benz convertible with gold hubcaps. And Jimmy and Isaac, hair sticking out. And now Isaac's talking fast. We drove 95 miles an hour all the way back. And I just put that snapshot of what recovery is because the miracles never end. The story's not ending either, but so we write a little tune for them just so they don't forget. And it's called God Works That Way. And how many moments do we all get to have like this, you know? And we see God's work. This whole thing about God, part of where this comes from is at our home group a couple years ago, God came up at the meeting. "Oh, brother, you're going for the doors, you know, like they are now." No, they're not. And this girl, and it's always from the mouths of the new people, not the old farts. You know, we kind of retread all the old stuff. And we're talking about God, and this girl goes, she's 3 weeks sober, she's got 3 kids, raising them by herself. She said, "I don't know if you can't believe in God, she says, can't you see God's works in these rooms?" Of course, everybody, ooh, pretty smart. Of course, I'm writing it down. I'm just really weird. I write it down somewhere. But it's so true. And if I don't have these eyeballs, these new eyes that I got, you know, I don't see these things. And I don't see them if I don't go to meetings, you know. I can see them in the grocery store, but it's different at a meeting. Because at a meeting, it's not like church where somebody, and I go to church, you know, but it's usually somebody up there talking about God. We go to an AA meeting, everybody gets to talk about God. It's pretty powerful. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. to install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with, and it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst and one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.